Let me start by saying the obvious. These aren't normal times. As we all manage our way through a pandemic unlike anything we've seen in a century, Michelle and I hope that you and your families are safe and well. If you've lost somebody to this virus, or if someone in your life is sick, or if you're one of the millions suffering economic hardship, please know that you're in our prayers. Please know that you're not alone, because now's the time for all of us to help where we can and to be there for each other, as neighbors, as co-workers, and as fellow citizens.
The United States election propaganda is one of the most popular, one of the most polemical, due to its ways or different ways to manage or to control the way they are promoting the candidates or the parties during current electoral processes. The most widely used vehicle of mass communication between parties or candidates during this time is television political propaganda. This process in the United States begins with caucuses, primaries, national conventions, the campaign, the general election, and the election of the Electoral College. The difference between the primaries and the general is that in the first one they are going to choose the candidates for the parties, and the last one, the general, is that they are going to choose the presidents of the nation. Political communication during electoral processes, the spot. They are the axis of the campaigns because of the possibilities of reach, impact, and repetition. Securities of the political propaganda, the transmitter has one, control of the message, and second, use of mass communication challenge for distribution. In that sense, the fundamental characteristic of the spot is the narration of the mediator. It's made without mediation. They are trying to give their own opinion or they are trying to give their own point of view to the topic, to the principal topic. This is done to the party or the candidate frames his message or her message from their own frame, or they can make a portrait of himself or herself and their adversary in their own frames. The spot, in essence, is a semiotic resource, the creator of political identifications and differentiations, and it has the ability or it has the capacity to mobilize or demobilize the voter. Basically, it is known for things. The first one is that its intention is manifest. The second one is that its purpose is persuasive. Number three is that the proposer is a candidate, a ruler, or a party. And the last one is it is broadcasted in television.
Form. Primary elections. Before proceeding to the presidential election, there is a previous step in which the candidates are chosen. This is the primary process of each party that is held throughout the first half of the year in the different states of the country. It is a nomination system that encourages competition among candidates. The result of the primaries is used to choose the candidate nominated for the president of the country, who will participate in the November election against the nominee of the opposing party. Who votes in the primaries? Except for the state of North Dakota, citizens over 18 years of age who are USA citizens must register to vote. The process and requirement for registration vary by the state. In many states, citizens have the opportunity to affiliate, free of charge, with one of the two parties when registering. In no case may a citizen join two parties or into states, but he or she may change his or her affiliation before the election.
Now, how do primaries take place? Okay, the nomination of the presidential candidate is made in each state of the country and can be done through two systems. The first one is the caucus and the other primary elections. The caucus is in states such as Iowa and Nevada. The presidential nomination system is based on a caucus of registered partisan citizens who, by a show of hands or by casting a vote of a ballot box, choose their candidates. So this is basically an election raising their hands. The primaries, this is when states that decide by primary elections can be defined by two types. The first one is that the partitions in which each party holds its own election and may be held on different dates. Among the partisan primaries, the ones who most by the parties can be in turn. In the open elections, no matter the citizen's affiliation, they can vote in the primary of the party they want, but they cannot vote in both. In the case of the closed, only those citizens who have registered to vote can vote as party affiliates. or declaring independents who register as supporters before the election. Then the semi-closed. These are the registered voters of a party may only vote in the party's primary, and the independents choose one of the two without needs to affiliate. In the case of non-partition, in which candidates, regardless of party affiliation, it doesn't matter, compete to be the nominees, this is the case of California and Washington. For example, a key date in the primary is the Super Tuesday, the day when most states hold primaries. In this case, in the case of the 2020 election, in the case of this year, the Super Tuesday was held on the March 3rd, with elections in 15 different jurisdictions. What is the National Convention of the Parties? Okay, the National Convention of the Parties is that this happens after the primaries are held in the summer. The parties hold their National Convention in which the candidates for president is officially announced and the candidate designates his or her running mate. In this case, the person who will serve as a vice president if they win. For the 2020 election, the election of this year, the Republican National Convention will be held in August 24th from 24th to 27th and in Charlotte, and the Democratic National Convention in July 13th and 16th in Milwaukee. After all of this process, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November is the presidential election, in which registered voters 18 years of age and older choose pledge to vote for the nation's president using a system of electoral colleges.
Polling station system. The United States presidential election system is indirect. Citizens do not directly elect the candidate, but rather prejudice or electors within each state who will cast electoral votes on their behalf. To win the election, the candidate must obtain an absolute majority of electoral votes that do not always coincide with the popular vote. Compromisers or electors. These are the representatives appointed within each state to cast electoral votes that will define who is president. The total number of pledges is 538, equal to the number of House of Representatives 435, plus the number of senators 100, plus the 3 delegates from Washington, D.C. Pledge holders are distributed among the 50 states and the District of Columbia according to their population, and their number is equal to the number of deputies and senators for the state. The pool of pledges forms the Electoral College, and each pledge casts one electoral vote. The pledgee must vote for the appropriate candidate according to the state's election rules. Each state has its own system for electing members of the Electoral College. As a general rule, commissioners are elected from the state committee of each winning party, or winning parties in the case of Maine and Nebraska, after the state's electoral votes have been awarded. Candidates are usually members of the party, but in that case may they also be senior public officials or members of the Congress or government. Most states give all their electoral votes to the candidate who wins an absolute majority of the popular votes. Citizens vote in the state. The only exceptions to this majority rule are Nebraska and Maine, which distribute the electoral vote proportionally among each candidate according to the percentage of popular votes obtained. The Electoral College never meets as a body. After the election, the pledges from each state meet in their state capitals to formally cast their electoral votes, which are then sent to Washington, D.C. to be certified by Congress. The candidate who receives 270 electoral votes wins the election. The Electoral College system works only for the presidential elections. The number of electoral votes per state for the 2020 election is determined by census data from 2010.
Content analysis, theme image. The importance of the thematic content of propaganda is based on the democratic belief that to make rational decisions, a voting public must be able to consider the candidate's stance. Several authors have identified the thematic content and image in the spots, also the quality of the candidates, if any mention is made of the characteristic of the candidates. Analyzed 156 spots report the propaganda of presidential candidates, governors, and senators in the USA. It records that 66.9% appealed to them and 52.6% did not appeal to the qualities. Shields analyzed 140 spots from the US primary in 1980. A panel of experts generated a variety of issues. Then a group of scholars identified from a list if the issues were absent or present in the spots. It reports the proportion of issues by party. The issues most mentioned by body national welfare. Democrats mentioned it 21% and Republicans 90%. These issues focused on the American dream. Just an enquete analyzed 1,213 spots, identified difference between image them spots. Them spots are more negative than image-based spots. The most used strategy in them spots is to appeal to a change. The most used strategy in image spots is the attribute of the competition. Negative or positive. Negativity as any criticism directed by one candidate during the campaign against another. Negativity does not involve direct attack on the competition. It involves how the appeal is framed. Content analysis of 795 USA presidential spots, and with a hypothesis of information asymmetry, it was identified that the credibility of a spot depends on its foundation in evidence. This rhetorical asymmetry encouraged negativity to be about legitimate issues. Analysis of 830 presidential spots, negative and focused on criticism of the opponent, while positive and focused on the good characteristics, accomplishment, or issues positions of a sponsoring candidate. It is identified that neither the electoral positions nor the party affiliation in positive and negative spot have significant difference. It is reported the dominant appeal, logical, emotional, and ethical, and the balance, positive and negative. Also, the identified of the speakers, candidate, anonymous, adversary, and surrogate. Candidates will use cheers more often than attacks, and attacks more often than defense. Incumbents acclaim more than challengers, on the other hand, attack more than incumbents. The video style concept describes the way political candidates present themselves in political propaganda. The concept is analyzed and divided into three factors: the analysis of verbal or the semantic content. The non-verbal may include visual elements and audio, the elements that don't have a specific semantic meaning, and production technique, such as camera angles, cutting techniques, use of music, use of approach, sounds, special effects, etc. The spot as a collection of individual images shot and essence emphasizes the creative function of the camera. The position of the camera contributes to the composition of the shot generated by the position, angle, and movement of the camera. It also identifies facial and kinesthetic codes. In the former, the fate of the candidate is a rich element in content. The latter also begin a vehicle of communication. Another relevant code is the missing scene, a reading of elements such as subject, space, color, and legs. These are part of the meaning of the candidate modeled in the viewer's mind. It includes the blending of code in the audio track, which has a significant proportion of the meaning of political propaganda. It also emphasizes the candidate's voice, which also has information. Politic is symbolic and semantic. Analyzes lowered with icons, treated not only as a symbol, but also as text. The synthetic construction of the spot, the montage, and stands out. It was concluded that attacks not only inform the voter, the attack has an informative function and also promotes accountability, documents and questions the problem of the adversary.
Marketing. The need to obtain voter acceptance is another point for the functioning of democracy. This is how they deserve to gain followers and prominence. Politicians have resorted to new forms of propaganda. The practice of political marketing is born. This practice has its origins in American politics, where it was gradually consolidated as a series of strategies, tactics, knowledge, and methods aimed at achieving social acceptance and legitimacy for obtaining and maintaining power. Political marketing has become a common practice that all parties use, in increasingly competitive scenarios, in such a way that it has come to constitute, for many, not only an alternative, but the only real alternative that the political class has to compete for power. Historical background of political electoral marketing. Election marketing emerges and develops successfully in the United States due to 5 factors. Its growth is closely linked to the development of media and communication technologies. In the context of the expansion of radio worldwide, in 1933 in California, independent political communication consultancy is used in a local election. The 1952 presidential elections, which pitted D. Eisenhower, Republican, against Stevenson, Democrat, saw the following electoral modalities. A. A special budget was set aside for political communication. B. The first political advertisements were broadcast on television. C. Direct mail marketing was also used for the first time. D. As well as opinion polls to define the candidate's campaign agenda. In the 1956 elections with the same contestants, Eisenhower was re-elected. Negative TV spots were presented for the first time. Background of the Dirty War. Within the propaganda format, promises versus management against Eisenhower. In the 1960 campaign, John Kennedy, Democrat, versus Richard Nixon, Republican, the first televised debates take place. Kennedy admits the importance of media training for acting in front of the television cameras. In 1964, during the presidential race between Lyndon B. Johnson, Democrat, and B. Woodwater, Republican, a television commercial is withdrawn for being too negative, the so-called Daisy spot. By the 1968 presidential race, R. Nixon, Republican versus H. Humphrey, Democrat, marketing had found its naturalization card. For the first time, citizen panels questioning candidates, telethons, were used alongside press conferences. Voters are seen as clients who demand or consume political products or services. Hence, in the context of a highly competitive electoral system, political parties, governments, and other political actors resort to persuasive techniques from commercial marketing to contest citizens' support for their projects of power and influence. Because the United States tradition of holding direct elections for most public offices, so that there are about 50,000 elections each year in the United States. In the US, there is a need to bring election marketing to its maximum expression given the low loyalty to the parties. It is estimated that approximately one-third of the electorate is assumed to have not a specific political inclination and votes according to the program candidate that responds to their citizen expectations. Through an innovative digital proposal, Obama went from an unknown senator in 2004 to a global sensation in 2008. His calls for change and hope captured the hearts of American voters.
Appealing to emotions. Trump focuses on reaching out to his audience emotions by speaking his mind about issues that concern many Americans, which make him perceived as a guy who spoke without taboos. Speaking directly to the audience. Although many presidential candidates tend to highlight their accomplishments, Trump also pointed out Hillary Clinton's actions during her years in office, regarding terrorism, foreign policies, and even issues related to her husband, Bill Clinton. Clarity of message toward specific niches. Trump knew he had to reach out to specific sectors of population that were being ignored by the Democrats. Niches to which he told them what they want to hear in order to gain their loyalty. And to that end his message, though controversial, was clear, simple, and easy to remember, with things like build a wall between Mexico and the United States or make America great again. Communication strategy. It is remarkable the fact that among the many candidates, Trump was among those who spent less on television guidelines, leaving self-promotion, as I saw that it was the media themselves who spoke about him, whether with negative or positive mentions. The idea was that his name was always present in news, opinion programs, talk shows, social networks, and any traditional or digital media.
Using online tools and social networks to spread the word was part of the idea of a political marketing agency that allowed the electorate to get involved in the campaign, finding new ways for the supporters to communicate with the candidate and improving the marketing of campaign content, to break with traditional paradigms and win the presidential race.
The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. Because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. Nothing worth doing ever came easy. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. The future belongs to the people who follow their heart no matter what the critics say. We must always remember that we share one home and one glorious destiny. We all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.